Hey, good people. Welcome back to another episode of Sit Down Hawaii, where we have conversations around topics that matter to you with people who can make a difference. I'm super excited today. We get to have a conversation with somebody that I've been watching from afar, that's been growing, started really young. But first, I want to make this really clear. We're not a political podcast. We are a podcast that talk about issues, and right now is election season. We got about 3 weeks till you decide who's going to represent your voice. And so, because it's pressing, we're talking to people about it. Today's guest is Cedric Gates. Cedric, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Mahalo for having me, Josh. What a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we couldn't even start because we were talking about so many things, and I really appreciate all that you've done. And if you don't know, we went ahead and we sent an email out to every district with a challenge. So whether incumbent or a challenger. So we did send an email out to Samantha DeCorte, and we asked for some time to sit down on the podcast and talk story. And truthfully, she responded. She was excited, and then we couldn't seem to work the dates out. We sent a few emails. It didn't really work out, but we did get time with Cedric. And I've got to say, if you live in Makaha and we're shooting out here in Kaka'ako at 10 a.m., and this guy woke up early, did the long trek to be here. It means a lot. It means you really want to be here, and we're very, very thankful. I also want to kind of preface this. If you want specifics in policy, if you want to hear stark differences maybe between him and Samantha, or really where he's going and what he's done, you want to go to the Civil Beat. Civil Beat's YouTube, they do a really good job in that. If you're looking for that, that's not today. That's not what we're doing. We're going to just have conversations around questions that you have. Sound good?
Yep. Sounds like a plan, brother.
Sounds like a plan. All right. We got 3 rules here. Number 1, respect. Even if you do or don't agree with Samantha or anyone else, we're going to be respectful here. Number 2 is we're going to be talking about the people. It's about you. Mm-hmm. So anytime we start going kind of crazy, I'm going to bring it down to the people. Okay. And the 3rd is we're going to have some fun.
Yay.
Yeah,
that's what I like to do.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's jump on in. So I'm gonna describe District 22. Okay. According to the state of Hawaii, State Senate District 22, really, really important to know that. It's defined as Ko'olina, Nanakuli, Waianae, Maili, Makaha, and Makua. Is that correct? Correct. Yep. Right on. So we do this segment called Sit Down. It's 5 facts, and then we just talk story.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. Did I miss anything? I miss anything about you? Or if you want the full breakdown of who he is, but let's just start real quick about who you are, what school you went to, and why you're here.
All right. My name is Cedric Gates. I was born and raised in Makaha. Grew up there all my life. That's all I know. And I attended Kamaili Elementary, Waianae Inter, Waianae High School. I ended up going to Youth Build Honolulu, which is an alternative learning program, and recently graduated from Leeward Community College, Waianae Moku, where you can now get your AA right in our Moku, which is special.
Yeah. That I spent some time after college and went back to LCC, and I gotta tell you, man, like, I think I had the best teachers at LCC.
I agree.
Yeah, and I was like, man, this is hard, like really, really challenging. So yeah, good for you. And where that LCC in the Waianae side it's like inland a little bit. Yeah, where is it?
It's on off of St. John's Road.
Okay, got you.
Right next to Maili Elementary School.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's a little bit about my background in terms of schooling.
Nice. And your full name is Cedric
Asuinga.
Okay, stop there, bro.
Asuinga, yeah.
Asuinga, so
that's my mother's maiden name.
Got you, okay.
The reason I represent it is because my mom passed at an early age. She passed at the age of when I was 12. Yeah. She was around 46.
Wow.
So, to carry her legacy and to represent who she was, I carry her maiden name and my name as well. So and then Asuinga is a big Samoan family from Pago Pago, Samoa. And my mom moved here when she was young from Samoa, and she ended up meeting my father, who was military. He was a mechanic for the helicopters at Willer. And then after that, they kind of connected, and the rest was kind of history. They had us and my siblings, but they loved the West Side. My dad always told me one of the special things that he always remembered about the West Side is that there's so much aloha there.
Yeah.
And especially when you're in need, people come to your rescue like no other community. He would always use the example of when his car broke down on the side of the road.
Right.
There was 10 people that stopped by to make sure that he was good. They need a jump, you need gas, whatever it was. He felt that type of aloha, and that's why he wanted to make sure he raised his kids here in our community of Waianae.
Yeah, I gotta agree.
Yeah.
100%, right? You know, if you're going to get stuck, you want to get stuck on the newer side. Somebody knows somebody who can at least tow you, you know?
Tow strap on deck. For sure.
5-minute wait, bro.
Yeah.
5-minute wait. Yeah, definitely. All right, let's just jump right in. I want to start off with affordable housing. So I've got my little notepad here so you can see some of the questions here.
Cool.
Housing affordability is a major issue for District 22. With housing prices increasing, many residents are struggling to remain in the neighborhoods they live for generations. Housing costs in 22 have increased, particularly Maile, Waianae, many residents being priced out of their homes. What's your plans to tackle this issue? What's your thoughts around it?
Yeah, so Waianae is one of the most affordable places you can purchase a house. As we all know, it's very secluded, far country, and a lot of people opt in to live in more central locations and Honolulu, obviously. But as we've seen in the past, recently, our housing market has really been influxed with foreign investments, with Airbnbs, with all these different types of housing that doesn't really serve our people. And one of the things that I've been doing is cracking down on vacation rentals. I know that's a touchy subject, but one of my communities or neighborhoods that I grew up in on Mo'ua Street, if you drive down that street now, majority of the beachfront properties are all Airbnbs.
Really?
And these are not technically legal Airbnbs because you have to be in a resort zoned area or a zoned area that allows you to do Airbnb. So it's taking up our local housing markets from people that should have access to it, which is our local kama'aina. And that's something that I've been fighting for. I've also been very supportive of limiting foreign investments through the state level, passing legislation. We're still working on that. I'm planning to introduce legislation if I am elected to the Senate to do something along those lines and work with the Attorney General to make sure that the legalities behind what we do is going to keep us out of legal trouble and prevent us from being sued for millions of dollars by all these people who are going to be mad that they're not going to be able to do Airbnbs. On top of that, one of the big things that we have to look at is public housing. How do we either provide infrastructure so that developers can come and develop for low cost and then pass that low cost onto residents. But then on the other side, we have our houseless community members who are making minimum wage. And how do we get housing for them? So I've introduced a bill called Ohana Zones, and that was in 2017. That was my first bill that I actually passed. And what that bill does is allow for these communal living spaces where we can build clusters of units with shared areas for shower, kitchen, bathrooms, all that kind of stuff. So that will lower the cost and be a lower barrier of entry into a house. Because at the end of the day, we always talk about our houseless residents. But for me, being born and raised there, those people are our community. I don't look at them as necessarily foreign unless they're coming from the mainland, which we have some of those folks. But at the same time, majority, if you look at the data, the point in time count, it indicates that majority of our houseless individuals on the west side are Native Hawaiian. And so that speaks volume to that we are not doing our community justice by leaving these people out on the streets with nowhere to go. And then the sweeps are not effective because they're just moving things over to the next part.
One spot to next.
And that's not going to alleviate the public safety concerns from residents who want to use all of our beach parks. So we have to figure out ways that we can incorporate them into the housing market, because if we don't, then they're going to have no options here in Hawaii. And that's one of the things I would hate to see.
Yeah, it's interesting because if I just feel like as a local resident, right, Okay, no Airbnbs on the beachfront property, local people, but how much is that? Now that's a $1.2 million home, or what does that look like, right? And let's be real, that's a lot of money. Not everybody can just do that. We definitely can't do it off of minimum wage.
Right.
We're not buying a $1.2 million beachfront
Correct.
thing. So it does, the question is, okay, hey, maybe I love that. Maybe there's, we crack down on Airbnbs, but now we have expensive homes we still cannot afford. I got a question. You've been, this is your neighborhood, bro. Like,
Yep.
you've been doing this for a while, and I commend you. You started really young, if I'm not mistaken, one of the youngest to ever do this, right?
Yep.
So
Second in the history of the state.
that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So your heart is to care, and you're empathetic. You've been through a lot, and I think when you've been through a lot, you really can relate where people are at. Not saying that you can't if you haven't been through a lot, but it seems like with your mom and your dad and your family, and it just seems like you resonate really well with just the people around you. What is going on in terms of, you got people who are houseless, this is their home, they just don't have a house. You got people who want to live on the beach, let's just say that, right? There's maybe not a big community, but there is a community there. You got people who are trying to get on their feet. You've got people who are in and out. Maybe they live at mom's and they kind of make it, and then they go back on the beach, and it's back and forth. And then you got like real homelessness where there's people not even from Hawaii. They got pushed. Let's just say that they got pushed further leeward, right? So what are you seeing? Is this like a real thing, or what's the majority of the leeward coast in your opinion? Because I could tell you, I love to surf tracks. If you drive from tracks to Makaha Beach, just that road, you're going to see a lot of homeless on all sides, really. And what does that look like? Why?
Yeah. So, obviously the economics in Hawaii is not in favor of our houseless individuals in terms of just affordability, right? Cost of living these days, whether it's HECO electric bill or your gas or your home, obviously your mortgage is your biggest cost. Those are unattainable for many of those folks on the beaches.
Right.
And that's the reality. That's why I have came up with the solution of low cost housing to put these individuals into house. It's not going to be a 3-bedroom with all the amenities, but it's a roof over their head that they can lock their things up and don't have to worry about the next man going into their tent, stealing all their belongings. And then on top of that, it allows them to receive the wraparound services that they need. A lot of them have mental health issues, substance abuse problems, trauma from, past issues that they went through, especially living on the streets. And I would like to just say it's not easy living on the streets. I've seen a lot in my time, obviously in the West Side, and they gotta go above and beyond the call of duty a lot of times, whether it's weather events, whether it's just sleeping at night. Those are challenges they have to overcome. And so I'm not trying to come from a judgmental space, but more of a place that like, hey, this is our community. We have to manage it properly because we as a community want to be able to be proud of our community. And I think that's been the biggest struggle for all of us out there. It's like, how do you be proud of a community when you drive past and all you see is houselessness? But and you also know that majority of them are Native Hawaiian. They are your people, and so that weighs on me a lot, and that's why I'm very passionate about figuring out how we move forward with them and not treat them as rubbish, right? I think that's where a lot of people feel the sweeps have done. It's like you treating these people like rubbish, you taking all their stuff, But at the same time, I do believe in maintaining public order. There has to be public safety for all of our residents. I have compassion, the utmost compassion for our houseless individuals. But when you go into these beach parks and you see needles and you see ice pipes and I ask myself, where's the compassion for our residents, right? We have to have that balance because then that way we can work in harmony. And, I have introduced the legislation that I've been working with HPD on, which is probably the biggest loophole that we're dealing with on the houselessness is that they can return as soon as an enforcement is done. So not only are you wasting hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to do these enforcements, the results that you want aren't there because they come right back. So I have a bill that would be where you get a warning, then you would get a citation, and then you would during that citation and that warning process, you're being offered services, you're being offered shelter. And if you don't want to take that, then we have to have a stick approach to the situation to make sure that we maintain public safety. And that's by having either you're going to a shelter or you're going to jail. And that's to really push our residents that are on the beach to make a decision. What are you going to do? Because the thing that my community is frustrated about is that there's a two-tier system, right? Our houseless individuals get to be treated this way, but if uncle fishing at the beach puts up a tent, he's getting harassed, he's getting a ticket, he's getting forced off the beach, and they're pointing at the other people like, what are we doing about this? And I just want to create that parity between both sides, because then both sides can agree that, you know, things need to change in a positive way rather than us versus them mentality, which is very toxic.
Yeah, you bring a really good point, because not all houselessness or homelessness is the same. And again, like recreational, you fish. If you're doing ulua fishing, you got to be there multiple days, and it takes forever to set up too. You know what I mean? So then you set up, and then you deal with this. So I can only imagine, you know, as you kind of go through, and I know that you know. Go check out Civil Beat. He talks a little bit about Auntie Twinkle.
Twinkle, yep.
You know, and there's a whole community out there. Yeah. You know, and it's if you don't know what that looks like, or even being by the boat harbor, or just going around, like there's a whole community of people that actually call themselves Ohana, and they have a whole thing that's going on. What's your thoughts around that? You brought up the police, and I kind of want to just give you a second. As a representative, how is that relationship? What are they doing? Are they trying? Like, what? It just seems right now in the news, there's all kind of crazy stuff going on. And if you don't know, if you don't know what it looks like or feels like after Ko'olina, like, I just want to give you a second to talk about what's going on and the relationships and what people are doing, because it might not be clearly reported.
Yeah. So, you know, with our police enforcement, obviously in light of the shootings that was taking place in the district within the past few months, Senator Crabb, Councilmember Andrea Tupola, and Rep. Darius Kila wrote a letter and a request to our mayor and our governor to increase enforcement and presence on the west side to deter the type of criminality that we've been seeing. We have had that. Fortunately, they have assigned additional beat officers, which is important. But also figuring out how we merge both state and city. I know a lot of times people don't know the difference, but the state is represented of the sheriffs and other do-care law enforcement, and the city is HPD. So with that being said, we've combined both of the forces together. On top of that, we've brought in our federal government agencies to help investigate. And our goal to all of them is to take the guns and the gangs off of our streets. That's the biggest concern for residents right now. And then on top of that, yes, traffic citations are important, making sure people are riding legal, because you don't want to get into an accident with somebody, no insurance, and you have to foot the whole bill, which isn't fair. But at the same time, we have to recognize that there's more issues that are prevalent that we would like to see done other than just the random ticketing of people in our community. Because I also realize that our community is a poverty-stricken community. So people are scraping by every day to make it happen. And so, you know, that commute to work every day may not be in a legal vehicle, but they're at least working, right? And that's kind of my perspective coming from Waianae, and that's kind of humble beginnings and how I was brought up. But at the same time, we do want to encourage these folks to do the right thing, to pay the taxes so that we can improve the roads. And I've introduced legislation to decrease our vehicle registration tax because I felt that was a big burden for a lot of, even for me. You know, I get paid decent, but paying registration on top of your rent, on top of your phone bill, on top of your insurance, on top of everything else, it can break you. And a lot of people don't even have an emergency $500 in their account in case of a family emergency or anything. So coming from that lens, it's important to try to work with our people rather than working against them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've tried to do. So on the vehicle registration, one of the things that I did was try to create a biannual registration plan, as well as like a payment plan that you can make. For example, if you only have, if your bill is $100 and you can only pay $20, you could get a decal that will carry you over for the month, right?
Wow.
And allow you to be legal and still have everything in place, because the registration, I mean, not the registry, but the safety inspection is only $25.
Right.
So that's low barrier, but it's the registration that really holds people back. And on top of that, if you don't do your registration, now you're getting a ticket. That ticket's now $200 something. So now on top of the registration you're supposed to pay, all of these different things are something we have to take into account and into our equation of how we get things done. With that being said, we will also be forgiving backdated registration. So if you have a vehicle, say a car show vehicle, that's been in your garage forever, you pay the registration for 1 year back, and then you pay a registration to bring it current. So that would be 2 registration. Instead of paying 20 years back of registration, you would only have to pay 2 years. Again, lowering the barrier for them to do the right thing is what I'm trying to do.
So are these things that you've written up and they've got denied, or they're put in place, or what does that look like?
So honestly, the reality is that I've introduced those bills over and over again, and what happens is that DOTAX and DOT and the city DTS, Department of Transportation Services, and Customer Services, they use that taxes for improvements.
Of course.
So they're saying, if we do this, then our coffers are going to be short. But I'm trying to relate to them and tell them, yes, that may be, but it also will bring more people to the table to get what they need done, right? So instead of trying to chase these people who owe 20 years back taxes, you could give them this in, and maybe we do it for a pilot period, right? In this 1 year, next year, for example, everybody who has backdated, you have this time to just update your registration with paying 1 year back tax and 1 year for your bring it current. And I think that will bring more people out and allow them to collect more taxes from people who they wouldn't rather pay if they had to pay the 20 years.
Yeah, it's man, you brought up a lot of things, and we're kind of moving into the kind of criminal side. So let's just jump into that. I think
we're just going.
Yeah, I won't say who. I have a family member would always say, they're older and long gone, but they would always say, yeah, we pay our taxes, but look how nice the roads in Kahala. Mm-hmm. Look at our roads, and I think there might be a little bit of truth to that. I don't know where we're at now. I don't live out in Makaha or Waianae, so I wouldn't know. But let's go through crime and public safety.
Yep.
These are real numbers. Cedric brought real numbers. I'll tell you what, brother. Thank you. I have my facts. He's like, no, let me give you yesterday's numbers. So I'm going to just kind of do a little bit of it. Waianae ranks among the highest for violent crimes in Hawaii. Surge of shootings and stabbings in recent months. Okay. And then we're going to look at some of the numbers. These are numbers from January to September. So let's just say October 1st. So very, very real. And this is from... It compares last year, same time period to now. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to go through them. So last year we had 5 murders to date. This year we're at 6. Aggravated assault. Last year we had 60. Currently we're at 42. So we have less assault so far this year. Mm-hmm. Kind of interesting. Forcible sex assault. We had 25 last year this time. This time we're at 24. So we're pretty close. Robbery, we're at 9 last year, we're at 16. So that's a 77% jump in robberies. Pretty interesting there. Burglaries, we're actually down by 10 from last year. Larceny and theft, we're up 14. So we're up there. Motor vehicle theft, we're up by 10. And weapon law violations, we're down by 28, which is very, very confusing to me. So let me just recap this. We have higher robbery right now, higher theft of our vehicles, higher theft in our vehicles, and we're slightly above for murder. Everything else seems to be better. I think everyday people are asking, because we just saw these recent, shootings, and respect and honor to the whole family, and our hearts go out to everyone.
Yes.
But what does this look like, and why? And then another question I have, maybe paired with that, is you've been in politics for 8 years, and it doesn't seem like anything's getting much better, even though some of these numbers are saying certain areas are better. But what's going on, and what do we got to do? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, I feel our people. There's a lot of confusion going on with where our trajectory is headed. One thing that I can say is times are changing. We are living in a different time than we used to.
Can I pause you there?
Yeah.
Like, how?
How?
Yeah, like I know I feel it, I see it, but how specifically?
Well, definitely, for example, guns. Before, say, even 10 years ago, there wasn't a way you could 3D print an actual gun that can be used in our community.
Are you guys finding those things?
Yes, 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I actually introduced a bill that puts a 5-year mandatory minimum on anyone that is caught with a ghost gun.
Wow.
Because we know that these guns are being used in a lot of these crimes, and one of the things that we're trying to do is obviously prevent ghost guns from being used. And so we have ideas, for example, of monitoring 3D printing in our state so that we have some type of baseline and some accountability that we can try to track when it comes to these ghost guns. And these kids nowadays, they have access to the internet, and on the internet you can buy anything you want. There's this thing called the black market and the black net, right? So you're able to go on these sites and literally buy whatever you want on them, and you can get it shipped in, no tracing, and basically now they're in play into our community. So it is hard for law enforcement to track those things, but one of the things that we're working on them to do is to create a task force that will be withstanding forever, if we can, to make sure that we have better monitoring in our communities on who's bringing these guns in. Are we arresting them? Are we creating cases on them? And are we going to bring them down eventually? That's the goal. And as you may know, people feel like, you see something, just go arrest them ASAP, get it done. But a lot of times there's a process. For example, with the game rooms, right? There's a lot of calls about that. Hey, what are we doing about this game room? So every time I do get a report that a game room is existing in the community, we send that through the proper channels. And the proper channels then have to open up an investigation. Then they have to go find somebody that's going to go in there to actually use the game so that they have evidence, and then they can go in and tackle these folks. But on top of that, a lot of it, these guys, what is happening is they're paying people to run it, right? And then they're the ones getting arrested. So you're not really cutting the head off the snake. Those they just regrow back into another community, into another house, into another neighborhood. And what we're trying to do on that end is to make it more of a felony to be able to lock these guys down and not give them a slap on the wrist, especially because a lot of times we are seeing violence taking place in these game rooms, right? Murders, assaults, all of these drug use, all of these different things that we have to try to monitor and track and then come up with a plan to attack it. But overall, we are seeing increased enforcement. We are seeing more patrol officers present in the community, which is a sign of our community to know that we have their back, right? That's probably the biggest concern that they have is like, if something happens to me, how long is it going to take a HPD officer to arrive at the scene? And that's why I also come in from a more conservative or middle ground approach where I feel that you do have the right to bear arms, and the Second Amendment right shouldn't be infringed on, because when things go down, especially at your home, you should have the ability to protect your ohana by any means necessary. And that's something that I strongly believe in as well. So we do have these options for people to protect themselves and to make sure that they are going to be able to respond to threats efficiently without necessarily having law enforcement involved if needed.
It's. I think you bring up a good point. I keep thinking of just like the HPD officers, just in this time that we've talked, right? You've got like houselessness, drugs, stuff going on the beaches in these smaller, communities. You got game rooms going on here. We got shootings going on here. We got printing of guns. Maybe you can help me either dispel this or is this true? There's been this kind of thought going around that there's like more gangs, more organized gangs using younger kids. I've even seen some recent stuff on Instagram of like random shootings and like, we don't know what's real or what's fake. Nowadays you got fake news, real news. You got all these hidden agendas. This is a podcast. We're just real people asking like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Have you seen that, felt that? Is there more of an uptake of organized crime, crazy stuff? Like what's going on?
Yeah. So, growing up, there was OGs, right? Our older generation of folks that kind of kept everybody in line in the streets. Right now, that has disappeared. So there is a power vacuum when it comes to crime and just things happening in the community. When it comes to, it's more or less, it's families that kind of merge into some gangs activity. But I think for the family part, it's kind of been consistent across the board in our community. If you've come from this family, you better not mess with that family because you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's to a different extent where it's like guns are definitely involved now.
Yeah.
Threats of death and all this kind of negative portrayal of what's happening in the community is combining with what's actually going on in the streets. So with these deaths that we're seeing in the community, for example, that there could be a potential for retaliation.
Right.
If, for example, somebody gets killed, obviously the family is going to be hurt and they're going to want to do things that are not the right things to do. So we have to, one of the big things on that end that I'm trying to incorporate is ho'oponopono. I feel like we have to come to the table with this mindset that, hey, we need each other. We're Ohana regardless if we have this bad blood, and we got to try to mend it so that the next generations don't follow the same beefs, right? Because it becomes a generational cycle.
Right.
We had these issues with this family, so now we're taking these actions to either get back at them or, do things that are not pono. And so one of the things that my kupuna have taught me is, hey, we got to be able to have some civility. We have to be able to talk it out like we're doing. Sit down and be able to like discuss where we're at, and maybe have some spokespersons from each family to be the people that actually mend the relationship. And I feel like if we do that, we'll see less of this type of activity, because we know that there are a lot of people who are hurting, right, at the loss of loved ones in these in our community, and they want retaliation.
Yeah, we started this podcast because we truly believe that we can talk story around things that are not always easy to talk about with people who may not agree. There was a time in Hawaii where you could do that, still shake hands and walk away.
Yeah.
And I just know the way I was raised. Violence is never a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's never the answer. But there was a time where if you fought things out, you either won, you lost, you shook hands, and that was it. It's pono. Like we had problems, then you had problems. I can recall my dad, we'd figure it out. If you lose, you lose, you win, you win. But other than that, we're done. And like it just seems like it just gets elevated and elevated and elevated. And there isn't that, and I don't know this, so maybe you can, I think you hit it on the money. There was a kupuna voice that was very, no matter how crazy things got, kupuna still had that respect. You know what I mean? And so maybe you're seeing it, maybe you're not seeing it. Maybe from afar I'm seeing it. I keep thinking of just the way I was raised and then what's going on now. It definitely doesn't seem like an easy answer. I want to take it down this road. We've heard several things. Why should someone stay here? Why should someone stay in this district? It's expensive. There's drugs. There's gang violence. There's shootings. There's murders. There's just a lot of things. I think a normal resident goes, yeah, bro, my safety is out. I'm getting pulled over by this policeman. right next to Miley Beach and look at that guy right there with drugs. And like, how in the world is this even fair? What is this even? Why even go through this? You have people moving to the mainland in droves. It's cheaper. It seems easier somehow. But like, from you, Cedric, not the politician, just someone who loves this community from Makaha, like, why stay here? Why fight this? Why even go through all this? Yeah.
You know, my brother actually recently moved to Vegas. Him and his kids and his wife decided to make the tough decision to leave Hawaii.
Wow.
And that hurt my heart. I ain't going to lie. Because I knew that we were not creating a society that we can all thrive in. Right, it's a struggle bus. Everybody's in survival mode, and it's hard to enjoy your quality of life if you're always thinking about your next meal, thinking about the next bill, thinking about how you're gonna get to work and the commute that it takes to get to work. All of these things come into mind. What I think of is, you know, this is where we're from. This is our home, and if we don't represent who we are and what this community is, then we're gonna lose it. And I feel like that's why people need to stay, because the Waianae coast that we love and care about so much can change overnight if we don't have good people in these positions to represent us and our values and our principles that make us who we are, which is one of the most tight-knit communities across the island, hands down. What I think needs to be talked more about is how we can all work together and have a role in creating this community that we all can be proud of. And for me, it's being in this legislative position, trying to bring the resources from that big square building, the state capitol, to our community, because we all pay taxes. Every resident on the Waianae coast are tax-paying citizens, or have some form of taxes that we pay. And all I'm saying is that we need those taxes and the money that we're giving up to be invested into our community, because that helps us create a thriving community. When you have a park that you can take your kids to without worrying about the drugs and the violence and all of these things, that makes people want to stay. When you can go use your bathroom at your beach park without stepping on a needle, that's a reason people would stay. All of these different things that need to be improved is why I try to serve in this position. And then when it's on the community end, we have to be the change we wish to see in some form of way. And when I'm saying everybody has to be a perfect angel, but what I'm saying is that we can't be contributing to the drama, to the dumping, to all of these different things that we have to deal with. And if we do see something, we have to say something. And that's unfortunately a struggle for people growing up on the west side. The last thing we're trying to do. That's
like the hardest thing to ask people to do, I would assume.
Right, because you don't want to get involved in with the police, because that's paperwork, that's dealing with somebody else's life and their livelihood, and then all of these different things come down the line, right? You know, you got beef with the family and all of these kind of stuff, and retaliation, which people are also scared of, which I can understand too. So making it easier for us to be productive members of our community and having outlets for us to give back and be a community-centric civilian, I think that's really where we're going to see a lot of change. And I try to tell people I'm only one person. I have one staff that we're trying to take all these complaints and concerns and put them together to find solutions. And it's super helpful when you have a auntie who's like, this is my neighborhood, I want this done, let's go, what we need to do. And they're like hounding me. They're gonna go to the city council to testify on a bill, or to the state capitol to make sure that whatever I'm introducing on behalf of them is gonna move and produce the results that we want to see.
I think it's well put. You know, you're one man with one idea, with one direction. You know, I want to touch really quickly on the Leeward Coast. You know, the people, with all respect, you know, I was kind of telling you this earlier, you know, anytime we would, so I went Kapolei, you know, and anytime we'd play Nanakuli or Waianae, you know, you better be ready. You better bring it, because it's not gonna be a walk in the park. It never is, and I don't care what it is. I wrestled, not a walk in the park. Football, not a walk. Baseball, you name it. You know, and so there's a resiliency there. And you're right. Everybody knows each other in good and hard ways. You know, you see champions coming out of Waianae. You see Max. You see, you know, Yancey. You see like the some of the best people that Hawaii have to offer come out of Waianae. So I do think there is a space where you got to fight for what you have and where you're at and doing it the right way. And I think that's a really, really good thing. I want to not pivot. I just kind of want to bring maybe some clarity.
Yep.
You got Nanakuli, Maili, Makaha, Makua, Waianae, and then Ko'olina. Let's just Ko'olina. You know, when you hit that turn, Kai point, that's different than what you just passed. How do you balance that? What do you say to a local person that goes, yeah, I see what's going on with Aulani and Four Seasons and all that money over there. I see all the tourists over there. It almost feels like they're in a bubble, right? I grew up in Honokai'ahale. It's definitely not Ko'olina. You know what I mean? And you pick up Nanakuli, that's definitely not Ko'olina. So what are we doing? Like, who, how, what? Like, they're clearly thriving. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of tourists there. What can we do? What have you done? What should we be looking at? Because in my mind, just simple view is there's a lot of money there. Can they not help us out here? You know, like, I know you're in the government side, but the private sector and the tourist money and all that stuff, it is affecting our homes and the families there as well. It's also driving up prices as well. So what do you say to a local person in Kama'aina around that?
You know, I think it's all about making sure that we're working in unison. So, for example, if we have all of these tourists going into Ko'olina, how do we get small businesses in Ko'olina that are from the west side, that represent our values, our morals, our principles, to obviously make money off of these people coming into our community? That's one way. Another way is, how do we educate our tourists to be mindful of our community that live here and aren't visiting for the summer or winter or whatever the case may be, but are grounded here and rooted here? And how do we have that mutual respect for each other? I think that is something I've been trying to bridge through efforts like trying to create, we call it ecotourism, where we would be able to have, say, Ka'ala farms, have tourists pay Ka'ala to work the lo'i. Like, that's the type of thinking I have when it comes to merging the two, because yes, the resources that they're going to bring in is going to allow us to invest back into our community, our people, and the places that we love. And then on top of that, we can educate them to the point where they're not being disrespectful throughout the community, whether they're using Keavula, aka Yokohama, or using Makua or any other public spaces or natural resources, and aren't just mistreating it. And I think that's been the biggest gripe between locals and tourists coming into our community. It's like, these guys have no respect. They don't know our history. They're doing things that are not pono, and now people are wanting to fight these guys. But I feel like with the disparity between the economics for Ko'olina and the rest of the Waianae Coast, we have to figure out ways that we can support each other, right? See, because they have the tourists who want the experience of being in Hawaii and learning about Hawaii. So how do we make sure that they're being properly educated with what we want them to know, rather than what they're seeing in a book or a YouTube video from some foreigner who's not from here, to educate them about our community? So those pieces are important. Job training, obviously, Aulani, all of these other entities in Ko'olina have good pay, and that's also one of the ways that we can keep people here, is that if we're getting a decent pay, that's allowing you to now afford to stay in Hawaii. And I feel like that's one of the key pieces we have to continue to connect. So with Sea Rider Productions, Ko'olina, there's a merge for job training, whether it's in technical training or in hospitality, all of these different career pathways that we're giving kids so that they don't choose the street life is what I'm very passionate about. Because if we have more opportunities for these kids to showcase their talents and to stay out of the streets, the more likely they're going to stay on this path of being a productive member of our society. And that's what I hope to see for all of our residents. But yes, the disparity is huge. And then you even have Manaolu, right, in Makaha, which is a bunch of $1 million homes. And obviously there is a discrepancy in the wealth gap there. What I feel is important is that, you know, act like we're all part of our community. We can't segregate each other from each other, because that doesn't create the community you want to see. If we have people that are living in Mono'olu, we know some mutual people that are giving back to the community through their efforts, whether it's through nonprofits or donations and things like that. How do we merge those two in a way that is just supportive of each other? And I think that's what I've been working on this whole time. So through nonprofit organizations, all of the job training programs that we're having for people to get good paying jobs, with Ko'olina trying to have more of a cultural base tourist experience that allows us to utilize these tourists as labor and as somewhat of a workforce to help maintain our natural resources. And then bringing it all together, I feel like having more funding to go to all of these efforts is what's gonna take to get where we want to go. So we did have a bill this past session. I think it was labeled as a green fee, but it's an additional tax on tourists coming into Hawaii. And how do we utilize that funding to go back to our people? And that's kind of the key concept of how I see us moving in that direction, where we can merge both the people that have everything and the people that are struggling every day, and figuring out a way that we can all enjoy our community together.
Yeah, I remember, and I could be wrong, but I remember when Aulani started. I'm big into theater. That's my thing. And then, I think they gave some funds and some support to the Nanakuli theater program.
Yep.
Right, and they that's how, and it really helped them. I know that much. And shout out to them. I mean, great program. The kids, very talented, and they, they do really, really well. I went to a church called St. Rita's Nanakuli. I grew up in that church, Father Alapaki, and there was always a Olelo Mass. And it was my favorite thing growing up, because, everything's in Olelo, Hawaii, and the tourists would drive to this church, right? And, we kneel, we stand, and it was just awesome. It's just great. And you would just watch the confusion of these people. Like, they don't know what's going on, and we're saying everything, and it just brings back this just funny memory. But I wonder, if we could repeat that. Maybe there's something, that we could possibly do in the future, where it's like, hey, yearly, the funds that are coming from these big entities, and we're dealing with this in Kapolei right now. Oh, we just got another Walmart. Right on. Raising Cane's solid. I saw they give $1,000. Like, right on. These brothers just made, I don't know, $8 million. Thank you for the 1,000. I'm not being, picky, but really now, like, how can we? And this is, maybe we'll leave this open ended. I'm not asking for an answer. Maybe you've already have the solutions, but it seems to me that if you're going to benefit from our community, from our people, from the aloha, from all that Hawaii has to offer, yet the money that's being kept and not given, it doesn't seem balanced. It doesn't seem balanced. And so maybe there's something there that we can push in this next season. And I'm going to leave that open-ended, unless you have a thought around that.
No, I do have a thought around that question one more time.
Yeah. So basically, you got all these entities in Ko'olina and all this money. Yeah. Why not once a year give Waianae High School $25,000? Go help Nanakuli.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's weird, because I know in politics, in your position, it's all statewide, and there's like a push and pull. But to the average everyday person, it just seems like such a hard job to do what seems to be pono.
Yeah. So I agree 100%, and that's my mentality, and was my mentality coming up in the political sphere. One of the things that I did prior to getting into politics, I started a nonprofit called Active Hawaii in 2011. I think I was 18 at the time. And what we did was we were fighting childhood obesity and trying to improve our life expectancies for residents on the Waianae coast. And obviously, one of the contributors to low life expectancy is fast food, all of these different things that are out there that are not good for the community. So what we did through the nonprofit is like, hey, we went and we taxed McDonald's, we taxed Jack in the Box, we taxed Taco Bell. It was like, hey, here's our proposal. We're not asking you, we're telling you, you need to give us money to help reverse some of the effects that you're having in our community. And that was probably the realest conversations I've had with those individuals in ownership and also just the managers, and just telling them, hey, this is our mission. We think you guys should be contributing. And basically that was the tax that we put on these guys. And I feel like that's somewhat how we should continue to do it.
Were you successful with that?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
For sure. And they all, not only monetary donations they gave, but also like water coolers, things of that nature, ice, meals, whatever gift cards we could give out. But I think it's the same for Ko'olina. There's nonprofits that are taxing Ko'olina and those people to get resources to our community. Valley of Rainbows, for example, which is a OPO learning experience where we take community members that are in our schools that have been identified by teachers, staff, or whatever as potential leaders, and try to kind of gear them up to know what it takes to be a Pono leader, and also the skill sets that you want to have, whether it's tying your tie, for example, or speaking with eye contact. All of these different things that I think is important for them to have in their wheelhouse to be able to apply it to improve their lives is what we're trying to do across the board. Because if we can do that with these groups of people, they're going to be impacting a certain group of people. And, if we can create that chain effect, I think that's where we see these big changes. But like I said, it's not easy. So, it's easy for me to say these things right now, but when you try to apply it in practice, it's a way different scenario. And I realized that when I talk to a lot of community, how I'm going to do this when I'm leaving my house at 5 a.m. to go to work. I'm coming back at 7 p.m. I got to cook dinner for my kids.
Seriously.
I got to go sleep to wake up again at 5 a.m. So people are stuck in this routine. And so when we talk about even community involvement, it's like, how do people be involved in a community when they got all of this on their plate? So I give people grace, and I also look at myself as someone standing in the gap for those families that are on that commute. That's why, our biggest priorities are issues that impact all of us, whether it's traffic, houselessness, education, healthcare. All of these different key core components of a thriving community is what I feel we have to invest in so that we can create it.
I think that's a perfect spot to take a break. So we went through a little bit of the housing, small kind drugs. We talked about gangs violence and all that stuff, and then Ko'olina. But when we get back, we'll talk a little bit more about education, and I'm sure everybody that's watching traffic. We got to talk about traffic a little bit.
Yeah, I have a lot to talk about traffic.
You're probably listening to this in traffic, not laughing at you, laughing with you. But all right, let's take a break and we'll get on back. Okay. Thanks, Cedric.
Sounds
Appreciate
good.
it. Hey, you're listening to Sit Down Hawaii Podcast, and I'm so glad you're here. If you're listening to this, do me a favor, share this with somebody in the neighborhood. Because I do think this is really important for you to hear what Cedric has to say, as it is election season coming up. You need to be making these decisions. Remember, your vote does matter. Get out there. Don't think that this is nothing, that you need to be voting for people who are going to represent your voice. Okay, thank you. Hey, hope you're having a good time on the podcast. Wanted to take a quick break to bring today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Sweet Life Tea. It's a tea that helps people get through anxiety. Listen, I have anxiety flying. I have anxiety kind of in a lot of areas. And it was something that was affecting me. And so I found this tea. It has organic, natural, vegan, non-GMO ingredients that when you put them all together, it just helped me relax. So there's things like chamomile, licorice root, lavender, and I felt like I wanted to bring you something that helped me. So if you're struggling with anxiety and you just need something to kind of relax that's organic, go ahead and go to sweetlifetea.com. Put in the code SitDownHawaii for 10% off. Okay, looking forward to the rest of the podcast. Hey, you're listening to Sit Down Hawaii. Thank you for being here. I'm here with Cedric Gates. Thank you, brother. Good break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mahalo for having me, Josh.
Always, brother. Let's start out with some fun.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna jump back in, but
jump some fun.
okay. I'm gonna paint the picture. You ready?
Okay.
It's been a long day. You skipped breakfast for some reason.
I always skip breakfast.
Yeah, I don't know. You was at the beach all day.
Uh-huh.
Let's just say it's 11:45. You're at the beach for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You're hungry. We pulled up the menu, Hanaras. What's the go-to, bro? Where are you going with Hanaras?
So Hanaros, because I always skip breakfast, I always get a breakfast plate. So for lunch,
I brought the menu. You can see if you want specifics, but up to you, bro.
Yeah, so that it's either that. They have a good chopped steak noodles.
What?
That's
the noodles
really
for sure,
good.
yeah.
And then I like the mahi mahi. That's obviously I love fish, so I usually go mahi mahi. And then just to try something different, I do the bibimbap. They have
What?
Korean, Japanese,
Oh, yeah,
Hawaiian,
definitely
so they
Korean,
have
yeah.
the variety of food. So I usually I have all my meetings at Hanara. So if I'm meeting with community, it's over lunch because
Yeah,
that
of
way
course.
we connect and we relax.
Yeah.
And
I should have brought lunch, bro. My
no,
bad.
you good. Maybe we Uber eat some while we talking.
Yeah. All the way from Hanaras here.
Hey, they probably would come.
Yeah.
You have a hefty tax on that.
Yeah, big time.
That and then they have some good pie. I like their pie. Banana pancakes.
Yeah.
Pancakes.
That's a go-to.
Too.
That's a go-to.
Yeah, so I could go on and on about all the things I eat there because that's like where I meet many of the constituents. So
right. Oh,
it's
good.
always just, find something that fits the mood for that day.
Nice. I want to remind you, we did invite Samantha. I would ask her the same question. And then we could just have a quick battle on what to eat at Hanaras. But let's jump right back in, bro.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your time. We're going to go right into education. We kind of talked a little bit about that. And, I'm a big fan of, looking at the facts, because you cannot argue the facts.
Yep.
It is what it is. And
now you still believe in facts.
Oh, yeah. Hey, in this world, you never know what is facts, what is real, what is fake news, real
That's
news.
true.
I sometimes people, you just get your information from Instagram, right? You're like, oh my goodness, I don't know about that. But here, let's go through it. So I have it here, elementary schools. We'll start there. So Nanakuli is bottom 50%. 90% of students meet or exceed standards for math. 29% proficiency reading. Lehoku, right, known as one of the better schools in Hawaii. Still bottom 50% in Hawaii. Proficiency in math is higher, 24%. Reading proficiency is 35%. Miley Elementary bottom 18%, 30%. And that bleeds over to the middle school. Nanakuli Intermediate School is at 10% math proficiency and 26% reading proficiency. Waianae is bottom 50 as well. Slightly better, 12% math, 28% reading. And then it goes into Nanakuli High School, bottom 50% of the state. Math proficiency is 8%. Reading proficiency is 29%. Graduation rate between 80 to 84%, which is slightly below the average. And then Waianae, slightly better in math at 17%. And then reading proficiency is 45%. 82% is the graduation rate. But it does have a note here, which is interesting, right? Very strong extracurricular programs in marine science and digital media. What is it? Sea Rider Productions.
Yeah,
they do a really good job out there. Yeah. So some things that I kind of saw is if we look at the proficiency rate, let's just take Nanakuli. In elementary, we look at the elementary school, it's about 12. I think I said 12%. I'm losing my papers here. Let me make sure I get that right. Yeah. Okay, 19% of math. And then in middle school, it drops down to 10%. And then high school, down to 8%. We see that across the board kind of with everything, right? Even the reading 29%, and then it drops down to 26%, and then, goes up a little bit, 29%. We see this in all of our schools that somehow the Leeward Coast, it starts in one space elementary, middle school it gets lower, and in high school it gets even lower. What's going on? What can we do? What's your thoughts around it?
Yeah, so that's obviously bad numbers that we want to improve on. What we have to also recognize is that this numbers are post-COVID. During COVID,
True.
we've seen a lot of learning loss throughout the nation, and that has hindered a lot of growth for our students in school today. You got to think of them as COVID babies, right? And what they had to deal with distance learning. I don't know about you, but distance learning compared to in-person learning, night
Big
and day.
difference, yeah.
And being able to have time with your teacher to work through some of the struggles you may be having, that disappeared for a period of time. So with that being said, we have to recover from that in some form, in some way. And one of the things that we've been obviously focusing on through our time in the legislature is investing into our schools. Many of the schools, if you talk to the principals, even not even the students, but just the principals, they'll tell you the conditions of the school are not the greatest. One of the things I'm proud of is that we've air conditioned every classroom across the Waianae Coast complex schools. And that's something I prioritized when I got in, because everybody back then was complaining about how hot it was.
Everybody cranky.
Yeah, everybody was cranky. Like, all of my town halls are like, when is ACs getting into our schools? Because my kids getting headache, they're getting sent home, all of these different ailments coming from the heat and having to sit in this place for long periods of time. So that was obviously one of the things I wanted to do, improve the environment. Because if you improve the environment, then it's these kids are able to now focus. These kids are not sweating, wiping bullets off their face, trying to take a test. So that was one of the things. But then also investing into the programs that are successful, like the Marine Science Learning Program, which we invested $4 to $5 million into to upgrade the educational platforms that they use. One of the things that they do, which is very cool, is that they grow ogo and seaweed at the school, and they now sell it to Safeway, Costco, and all these other things.
That's awesome.
And one of the bills I introduced and passed while in office was this bill called Career Pathways and school enterprises or enterprises. And what I wanted to do with that is build up our schools to a point where we're job training at school. We're giving kids pathways that they're interested in so that they can be engaged in the learning. One of the big challenges we have is we're a hard-to-fill district, meaning that we have high turnover rates for our teachers, faculty, and that's across healthcare, that's across police, everything. So we have this challenge in our face that we have to address, which is Teach for America teachers coming in that may not be as akamai when it comes to our culture and our way of learning and connecting with our students, that we need to refine a little bit better. When I was in school, majority of my teachers in high school were all 20-year-old people from outside of Hawaii. And so how do you build relationships with these people? And one thing I think is apparent is that when you have long-standing teachers who's been there for 10, 15, 20 years, the way they are able to teach our kids, the way they're able to interact with our kids is completely different from somebody coming in from the mainland trying to take a job because they want to be in Hawaii. Those are the issues that we still have to address, which is something that I'm trying to do through programs at UH, which allows for us to create homegrown teachers, which I think is probably the best option for us to see the proficiency increase in our communities. Because when we're able to connect math to the Aina, and when we're able to connect writing to expressing our thoughts and who we are as a community, all of those things allow for our kids to have a better experience in the educational system. And on top of that, we have to allow for them to find what works for them. So a traditional learning setting, for a lot of my residents, we're hands-on learners. So we like to be visual. We like to have those type of learning settings that allow us to use our skill sets a little bit better than just writing it on a paper. And how do we do that? One of the big things I've done so far is we're building a 21st century learning center at Makaha Elementary.
Nice.
And what we're trying to do with that is to bring our education system up to the 21st century standards, because the paper at school, that's not really engaging our students the way we need them to be engaged so that they can have this education that will last a lifetime. We have to change with the times, and that's what I've told the administrators out there is I want to see us moving with the times, whether it's having smart boards in our classrooms, whether it's having more cultural based learning activities that connect kids to the school and connect to the community. Those are the things that I think will improve what we have right now, but also with the at-risk youth, which is one of the big topics we're talking about right now with gun violence, right? These at-risk youth getting caught up in the streets and ending up into these crappy situations where they're ending up killing their own peers. Those are the things that we're trying to root out through the alternative learning programs, which I actually was able to fund a new building for Alternative Learning Center called Papahana Okaiona. And so that is using cultural base, using trades, using community to build these kids up to be leaders. And I like that about the alternative learning programs. They're really focusing on life skills because, you know, these at-risk youth, they're most likely not going to be using algebra. They're most likely not going to be using all of these other skills that are force-fed in the educational system we have now, DOE. What we have seen, which is I'm a product of, Youth Build Honolulu Alternative Learning Center, they were able to really transform me into a civilian, into a leader. And that's carried on through my whole life now. And I'm literally the poster child for this program because it shows like when you equip kids with the tools and the skills that they're going to need to succeed, that's when you'll see the successes coming out of these people when they have the skills to cope with whatever they're dealing with, the trauma and all of those things. And so building onto that is what we want to do. And then I'll end off on the educational system. One of the most important things that we have proven through facts and through studies is that early education is the way forward to make sure that we have proficient learners. And one of the things we've done in the legislature is we've committed $200 million to build out these preschool classrooms across the coast. We have about 5 classrooms that are being built right now, which will allow for our parents who are working, obviously, and need a cheap alternative from childcare to have a preschool alternative for them to put their kid in. But also it's good for our society because, like I said, if these kids are becoming proficient at learning at an early age, that carries on for generations to come. And we know there's a window of time where we can influence these youth and have the best impact. So we have to really invest in that because I feel when we have the accessibility to these preschools, more of our parents are going to have the ability to put them in there, and then that will eventually create the community we want to see with proficient learners.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone in Hawaii, including Leeward Coast, I don't know how anyone can afford just babysitting. Really. If it wasn't for, I mean, shout out to my parents, that's just what local families is. At this point, you go to these schools, you're like, whoa, I need to work another job. Like, I need to work another job just to take care of the preschool, right? And it's one of those things where you got to balance it and the trust. It's a lot of things there. So I definitely I could see that. I wonder what the thought is. You know, if the schooling isn't doing well. And I know a few teachers and a few counselors that work at some of these schools, right? When I talk to them, they love working there. Like, let me tell you, I have a friend in particular I'm thinking of. She drives from town all the way to Waianae every day. And she's very highly qualified, but she's like, no, I absolutely love working there. And I don't really know why. I never really asked, but I just took it as whatever it is that she's doing is something that she feels like it's really important and really needed. And so I definitely think that there is a thought where there are people who really want to be there. But paired with that, having these teachers that reflect the community, I know that there's some incentivized monies that go into the teachers.
Correct.
Go to these types of neighborhoods, which a lot of the Leeward Coast schools fall into those
hard
places,
to fill
right?
schools.
Yeah, but I wonder if, and again, you don't need to answer this, or I wonder in moving forward if we could earmark that or tailor that or put more emphasis in monies towards the kids that went to those schools or from that community, right? Hey, I've been here my whole life. I went to UH. I got my degree. I'm a teacher now. I'm really good at teach at Punahou, right? Like, maybe there's things that we can do to try to get them to come back. I've kind of mentioned this, and there's a really big thing around, and I kind of talked about Kahuku. There was a time in a season where we would go to the ILH OIA football championship. And it was like, it was ILH versus OIA. It wasn't this like, I like what it is now.
Yeah.
But it was
open.
And I grew up in late 80s, early 90s. It was, who's playing St. Louis this year? That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if you went Punahou or Iolani, or I'm not trying to, make anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leave a comment down below if you're upset. Sorry. But the truth was who's playing St. Louis? And it was Kahuku or Waianae. That's what it was. Mililani wasn't on the scene. Kapolei wasn't built yet.
Right.
And we went, we always went together and we sat on OIA, period. It didn't matter who it was, but we were like public school, me, my grandfather, my dad, all my uncles, and whoever it was that was OIA, we went and we did that. And Kahuku had this thing where it was like, you go out, you go do sports, you make it NFL, you come back. Help our kids out, and you see the programming, you see things thriving. And I just wonder, not just in academics, but also in sports, and you see what's going on with the film side. I mean, it's just phenomenal what's going on out there. Maybe there's something we can put together where we just bring our own people back to where they started, and maybe we could build something a little stronger.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I can list a few examples. Max Holloway, obviously a good friend of mine, Hamo from the West Side. He obviously has made it to the top of the mountain and came back. He actually still lives in Waianae.
Yeah.
And what he's done is obviously through his outreach with the Boys and Girls Club, he's created a workout facility at the Boys and Girls Club. He invested some cash into that, which is huge. DeForest Buckner is actually my cousin from my Samoan side.
He went Niners, and then he moved over
to
the
Colts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So he's actually my relative, and what he's done in the past, he's bought Waianae High School all new jerseys, new equipment, all of that, and then he also has hosted training camps, bringing in NFL players with our high school and all the sports teams that are out there. Our community is a big football community in general. So he's been helping with that. Yancey, he's great. He's always being the positive influencer that he is with Aloha, and he's been doing a lot of talk stories with schools and things like that. So he's put a lot of effort into just being a voice for our people. And then there's a plethora of other individuals through small businesses, business owners, things like that, who make it big and are investing in nonprofits and things like that. So there's a lot of those individuals actually in the community. Another big influence is the Peterson Bros. They're graduates of Waianae High School, and they're actually the ones building the track and the field at Waianae High School through their construction company.
I know you're pretty big into that.
Yeah, so for our football field, one of the things that I'm a big football fan, first of all. I'm a big Sea Rider fan as well. Once a Sea Rider, always a Sea Rider. With that being said, I used to do PE at that field, and I remember the dirt track, running track all the time, and you're just running on dirt, and it's dusting in your face, and can't wear white shoes. So I used that.
Wear white shoes.
Yeah, that was my biggest thing. I couldn't wear my white Nikes, man. So knowing and having that lived experience of using our high school, one of the things that I realize is like we need pride back into our schools. One of the ways we can do that is through improving the field, because the field is not only used for sports, it's used for Relay for Life, for fundraisers, and it could be used for whatever we want it to. But with the condition it was in, not a lot of people were interested other than the sports teams to use the field. So with me getting into office, I made a promise to our athletic folks that I was going to make sure we built a new field. So I secured the first amount of money in 2017, and it was about $1.5 million is what we were estimating it to be. Right. And then as time went on and as inflation got bigger, the costs increased. So I had to keep going back to the legislature, securing more and more money. And eventually it cost $6.5 million to redo the stadium, which includes the football field, soccer field, and the track. And what we're doing with that is, again, creating pride into our community. On social media, that's gone viral. Everybody's loving it. People are so excited because they're alumni too, and they remember what it was like. Right. And within the past 50 years, there hasn't been any substantial improvements to that field. So that was alarming to me, and that's when I talk about neglect from government and why people feel a certain way about government, because you look at what government is doing and what they're running and the conditions of what these things are in, it shows. And one of the biggest things I would say is, when it comes to government, the biggest way that we can show we care is through our budget. And our budget reflects how much we care about an issue. So I've been trying to just, again, connect the dots, bring that to the completion of the field should be done before the end of the year. We're crossing our fingers. So we're looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. We'll have a big grand opening of it. I want to hold a rager, concert, community unity, to show our people, hey, we're all in this together. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Wow. I got to tell you, I think I can say this with full certainty. I think that Nanakuli and Waianae high schools are probably the nicest locations. Mm-hmm. Like when you play football and you're right by the water, are you kidding me?
Right.
Like, it's gorgeous. What? I used to think that, like, how does anybody even do work out here? Like, you tropo out, go to class, come back, it just seems like it's right in the water.
Yeah.
Like, nobody on the east side has that. Like, this is unreal. Kapolei, we're in the middle of the land. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then Nanakuli with the sunset, forget it, bro.
Oh, yeah.
It's gorgeous, So, the fact that it's not one of the nicest, in my mind, campuses is kind of mind blowing. Yeah, it really is beautiful. And shout out to the Leeward Coast, the water. I'm super biased on this, but the best beaches are on the west side.
That's what I tell people.
Oh, wait, tell them it's not.
Yeah,
it's really not. Yeah. Just because there's gonna be a lot of people, but no, it really is like the nicest beaches. So I don't know how that works out, but I think when you do build that out, it's gonna be gorgeous. Man.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be great.
And that's just one of the investments we're making. I think there's so much, like $100 million for Farrington Highway. That was something that traffic is a big issue, so we really focused on.
Well, let's go into that.
Okay,
Okay, I put this at the end, so I want to preface this way. I worked at Monkey Pod for a little while.
Oh, okay.
And shout out to Monkey Pod. It's really good people who care.
Yeah.
And I could tell when there's traffic because there's a happy hour in Monkey Pod. And it would be like, I forget, it was like, I don't know, 3 to 5:30. The pizzas was half off. Everything was good.
Yeah, I love Monkey Pod.
Yeah, you just see this massive influx of people, and like local people too, like not tourists, just local people standing in line. And I was a server there, and I would say, hey, what's going on? Whole traffic is me. I'd rather sit here, eat some pizza, listen to some music. I think Uncle Jeff Rasputin, all these people would play, right?
Right.
And it would be like, I'd rather just sit here, eat some food, and just let the traffic pass. So
I was like that too.
But it's
still like
it's
that.
brutal. Even when I surf at track, sometimes I just see it. I'm like, oh man. Oh, I have another story. One time there was traffic. No joke. Brought out with his jeans. It was like he had his painter's clothes on. He paddled out with his uniform on. I was like, bro, what's going on? I said, bro, this traffic's so bad. It's just jump in the water in my jeans. So what is going on? Because it seems to have gotten really crazy. What's going on in the traffic? Please give us an update.
Yep.
What needs to happen?
Yeah. So obviously our community has grown. The infrastructure that was built was not in anticipation of the influx of population in our community. So we're really trying to catch up to all of that. We've invested a substantial amount of money into Farrington Highway. Honestly, I won my election based on building a new road. That was like my whole ploy to everybody. Hey, we need a new road. I'll be the guy to deliver for you. Oh. And what we've done so far is invested over $100 million into Farrington Highway. That includes extending the turning lane on Farrington Highway from Piliokahi to Mohihi Street, which is basically almost to Maili.
Yeah.
And then we have the bridge projects, which a lot of people are not happy with the Maipalaoa Bridge. It's been taking too long. There's been issues with the former contractor who basically closed down and dissolved and took the money, and we had to go through insurance, recoup all of the money that was put towards the bridge. Anyways, it's just taking too long.
Where is that at? Because I just drove over.
So
like, it's kind of looks like it's there, or
no. So it's right. If you're familiar with Kokomana Road, right by Sea Country. So right after you pass Sea Country going westbound, it's gonna be that first bridge that you hit. So that bridge it's a huge undertaking because it's literally the lifeline to our west side. So with that being said, the construction's currently being done. I'm hoping by the end of this year. We keep getting changes in the timeline from DOT and the contractors, which is very frustrating because we were told August was pretty much the end of that project, with some minor stuff that they needed to do on the side that wouldn't impact traffic. But obviously it's carried over and people are frustrated. I'm frustrated. I've been pushing for night work to expedite the project and just basically, I think all of our construction projects should be at night. I don't understand. Like, I come into town sometimes a little later after the traffic rush, and like I'm on H2, H1, and they close down 2 left lanes, and it's causing this major backup during non-peak hours. So it's very frustrating for residents.
Are they telling you like why? Like,
well, they are telling us that basically it costs more at nighttime and it's less safe at nighttime, obviously, for visibility issues. But also what I'm telling them is that it doesn't matter. Our community deserves the best, and that's what I've been pushing for. Makaha Bridges, we just got that done.
Yeah, it's done.
That was a huge undertaking because there was a lot of pilikia that was going on between DOT and residents that lived in the area. So I was fortunate to be able to be a mediator in that situation to have a win-win, because a lot of our residents wanted it to go around Makaha Beach, go up Keeley and go around and come back out, so that we could open up that space for public use and for pedestrian and for people to just have more access to a park, build a basketball court, all of that extra stuff. So that was the goal for that. The biggest project that I'm undertaking right now is opening up the Waianae Coast Emergency Access Route for daily use. I promised my community this was something I was going to do. We've been able to secure almost $8 million to go to that road. What we're doing with that is Lulule Naval Road is the Army road that goes up to the naval base, or Navy road going up to the Navy base. We're going to upgrade that road. The state is coming in. It's currently a Navy road, and then the emergency access route from Pa'akea to Ma'ili'ili Road, that's a private road / city road. So we're bringing, the state's kind of coming in as a big brother and saying, okay, we've had these issues, nothing's getting done. We're taking it on. We're going to do the project. We have the money, we have the capacity, and we're going to upgrade this road so that it can be used for daily use. So it's going to be pretty much a secondary access for our community to either get west or to get east. And it's about a 5-mile stretch of road. With that road, we're going to be doing safety improvements, traffic calming measures, also lighting, which has been a big issue. And we will probably have to deal with some flooding situations because if you remember, Pa'akea gets flooded. So we have to figure out how we're going to do that. But the goal is to get it done by spring of 2025. We have Department of Transportation's commitment. I've spoken with them. They're gearing up to start the project, and it's going to be widening the road, improving it, and making it accessible for everybody.
But so those are all roads that is like you're already past Nanakuli. Like, you're there.
Correct.
So what are we doing from the first stoplight? Actually, the first
Honokai.
speed hump.
Oh,
let's
speed
try
hump.
that.
Yeah.
Because there's like the speed humps right
Correct.
now, kind of by St. Rita's.
Yep.
Over there.
Piliokahi.
Yep. So from there, all the way to, let's just water park.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I mean, it is that. So
Yeah.
what are we doing around that?
So if you are familiar with the water park, there's that road that is adjacent to the water park.
The old road.
That's Old
Yeah.
Farrington Highway.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the ideas I'm proposing as the new senator for that area, because just clarifying, my district only is from Makaha to Waianae. So Waianae Comprehensive Health Center, Ma'ilili Road, that's my cutoff for my district. So how it works in politics is you can only speak about these communities that you represent. But for me, all of our community members that live that side got to go through Nanakuli. So that's why I've kind of made it an issue for me to be involved in that and try to find solutions to get us where we need to be. One of the things we're looking at is obviously opening up Kole Kole Pass as another route. We have a MOU with the Navy, state, and city to be able to utilize that road for emergencies, mainly to bring resources in or to get heavy equipment into the west side. God forbid a tsunami or hurricane comes through and we get, the Farrington Highway gets wiped out. We have to be able to have accessibility. So we have that Kole Kole Pass agreement. My goal is to eventually get it open for us to utilize, especially if they're moving ammunition out of that area to Westlock potentially. If we can get that now open for our community to utilize, I think it would be a huge win. And the good thing is that it would be federally funded, which I said the feds have a huge bankroll compared to the state. And we're hoping that we can improve it so that it's safe enough for us to traverse if we have to evacuate the west side. Hopefully, I think the best option is for us to stay in place. But in case we have to evacuate, then we will have this accessibility. One of the key things I'm working on right now, too, is I am working with the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency to stand up a West Side Hawaii Emergency Management Center so that we can be adaptable to whatever comes our way. And along with that, we want to equip residents who are from our community with radio, Starlink, all of these different things so that when things hit the fan, we have a community resource that is made up of our people that we can go and check on grandma, grandpa, all of these aunties and uncles across the community. And I think that plays into the safety factor. Getting back to your question about how do we get us from Water Park to Makaha, we definitely have an option of using that Old Farrington Highway Road and then utilizing some of the space that's I think it's used for ranching right now, all before Kolina, and we could potentially connect to Piliokahi. How we do that?
A back way, or
so
how does that look?
The problem is that right there around Black Rocks is the choke point of how do we get that road to connect to the next road.
I could see that.
And for me, I just want to clarify because there are concerns from residents in the Nanakuli area that they don't want a new road running behind their house and all of this kind of. So we do have to work out logistics on what that would look like. And maybe it's not necessarily an everyday thing. And maybe we start with just emergencies only so that we can build into maybe potentially opening it up for daily use. But I think there's some safety issues that we have to address with that new road. To start off, though, for example, we just had 2 accidents in that Nanakuli corridor. It was past the Lu'ulu'ule entrance, and traffic was snarled for a couple hours. So, and we had to wait for HPD to go open the gate, which takes time. And then not only they got to open it, they have to manage it. So they have to sit there and let cars go and tell people go, 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 go. So that's taking police resources off of our streets to have a road that should be open for daily use. So look forward to that because I feel it's a start and it's going to allow us to catapult into the next projects that we want to see for transportation.
Yeah, it just seems like it's affecting everyday life, right? It's already long as it is, right? So if you live in Makaha and you got to drive to town, which is crazy, and then it's like, what is it, the stops, right?
Stop
You go like,
lights.
okay, once I get it here, then we got a whole nother thing of traffic.
Yeah.
I can only imagine you go through, Red Hill, you get through all of that. And
Oh,
you take
yeah.
a nice breather from Waikele
Yeah.
to Kapolei, and then you just, maybe you stop, get a drink or
Yeah.
something, like a coffee, and then you get back into it, right? So that's got to be a lot. I want to let's just do one fun thing,
Yeah.
and then we can just kind of close up. We can talk about anything that you choose. Okay, so I got this fun game. Let me just set it up. Okay, fun insight. Oh, you know what? I did have one more. Okay, let's do this because I think this would be cool.
Okay.
So we take your profile.
Mm-hmm.
We take the response of the community, the top 5 issues, and we put it all together and we ask ChatGPT, let's put together one question for Cedric. And so we put it together. This is what ChatGPT came up with, okay? Okay. If you could take one local tradition from District 22 and reinvent it with a modern twist, what would it be? How would you make it relevant for today's youth? I'll say it one more time. If you could take one local tradition and reinvent it with a modern twist, what would it be? How would it be relevant for today's youth?
I would say the local tradition has to be the family gatherings. How we reinvent that to be applicable to our youth is having more youth-led initiatives or activities that they can engage in with their cousins, friends, family, and it'd be more of an invite all inclusive approach to how we do our family gatherings. Even right now, you go to Miley Beach and there's a party going on. You hungry? If you just walking past, they might just offer you a plate. Come in, make a plate, do that. And I feel like when we have that type of bond and relationship with our community and our families, it creates a way that we can all lean on each other, right? I think that's what's kind of missing in today's society. It's we don't have that neighbor relationship no more. We kind of don't know. We kind of keep to ourselves. We don't want to bother nobody, and we're not building those long-lasting relationships that can be applied to all of the things that we do in life. And I feel if we did that a little bit better, we would see a lot of our problems that exist now go away, because it's a lot comes down to communication. If we're not going to communicate with one another, and in national politics, we've become so divided, right? Where it's, if you're a Democrat, don't talk to me. I'm a Republican, And with that being said, when you have these type of family gatherings, you have people from all walks of life. You have Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Green Party, all of these people, Aloha Aina. And that allows us to bounce these ideas, to build the camaraderie, and find out we're all in this together, and it's a cool thing, but we majority of the time have the same vision and goal for our community. It's, again, we're not communicating it effectively to the point where we can all band together, like we talked about earlier, of how you see Kahuku and other communities. Waianae has that for sure. How do we do it in a better way is obviously through what I just mentioned.
Oh, that was tricky, huh? ChatGPT is no joke.
Yeah, that was good.
I think you're right 100% because, family, everybody knows everybody. If you've been there for a while, and I think that's maybe even part of the balance of when you come into a new community and nobody knows who you are, and maybe you don't know that everybody knows everybody, right? I think it takes a month. You're like, whoa, I didn't know that person knows that person that's married to that person. And so I definitely think you hit it on the money with how interconnected everything is, right? That's challenging. That's very challenging. Okay, one game and we're out. You ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so, I just thought of this game.
Okay.
Think of the communities. So we're going to go Ko'olina, Nanakuli, Maili, Waianae, and Makaha. Think of the people. Think of everything you know about it. I want you to come up with an animal that represents each community and why. And yes, you can go Hawks for Nanakuli, which seems like a given. Hawks, baby. We get it, right? Maybe that's where you want to go. But, an animal that represents each, community and why.
Okay. So for Makaha, I would say dolphin. I'd say a
You
dolphin
went
from
dolphin on
Makaha.
me.
Yeah,
Okay, how come?
a dolphin because we're intelligent, we are friendly, and we are social. So that's why you see Makaha Beach always packed with tents. It's generally, if it's not tourists, it's all the local brothers and
Yep.
sisters out there doing their thing. And you know, we're peaceful in that way, there's just some majestic thing about being from Makaha, and me being
cool.
biased. I am born and raised Makaha, so that's take that with a grain of salt. But I think that represents Makaha. Off the top of my head, that would be the one.
I could see that. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Okay.
And obviously, we have all the dolphins at Makua,
Right.
right? You have the pods out there, and obviously, tourists love trying to swim with them. We're always on their butt about, giving them 50 feet and staying away. And then for Waianae, I mean, it's hard not to say the sharks, because that's kind of our whole mentality, right? We're like the beast in the water, and I can connect to that. Obviously, I went to Waianae High School as a sea rider, and so we do our best to channel that in terms of our sports, in terms of our personality. We're very aggressive in Waianae. Guys are not scared to call you out on your crap, and I feel like that's what kind of sharks do. They're the beasts of the ocean, and I feel Waianae is that way as well. And it just represents our grit, and how we like to operate. If we smell blood, if you that fish in the water, you out there, we smell blood. It's bad news for you. And that mentality and that example is used for identifying who's real and who's fake. Right? Like, we can smell you in the water, right? And we can kind of identify who's who. So I think that's special about Waianae. Miley, I want to say Miley is definitely beach focused. I mean, all my Miley boys, they all love Tumblelands. You
gotta pick
Green
an animal.
Lantern. I know. So I'm thinking
the two big ones already got taken. So
I would say they're the bridge. So what animal would be a good bridge for those two? I would say. That's a good question. I want to say the pueo, because I feel like Miley has a lot of wisdom in its own right. It has, it's the interconnectedness between all sides, and that's where we all meet as a gathering place. So that's where we are able to build our wisdom too, because we're able to exchange with each other as the meeting spot. Like, all of our parties, Mighty Beach, right? Because we knew it's central, and for all the people coming from Nanakuli and all the people coming from Makaha. So I'd say that would be it. And then for Nanakuli, I know you said don't say the Hawks, but it's just
that's fine.
It's so hard not to say the Hawks, because literally everywhere you go in Nanakuli is Hawks, baby. And so, I just was inside out there. And also they're in the valley, right? Like, Nanakuli Valley is steep, high, and it's a place where I can imagine the Hawks kind of roaming and in the mountains, and having that bird's eye view of our community in its own way. But I also feel like one thing special about Nanakuli is that they're really woven together. Like, everybody in Nanakuli knows everybody in a different sense than Waianae, Makaha, Maili, for example, because it's all homestead, right? So it's all Kanaka. It's all people that kind of grew up with each other, the 5th generation, 6th generation, like, you can go on and on. So I think that would be the case for me, but that was a hard
Wait, we're not
game.
done.
We're not done.
You got Koalina.
Okay. Oh, Koalina. Koalina. I would say a turtle. Say the turtle, because that's like the chill area. That's where if I was a turtle, I'd be over there posted up on the sand, because you're not gonna get bothered. There's a lot of environmentally friendly individuals that would call you out for getting too close, for example. And I think like a turtle, it's has that nature of also allowing us to get out of the spaces that we're in, and kind of find something different. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a good one, eh?
Yeah, that was a good game. I might have to use that next time.
Well, I think it just shows that it's a leeward coast, but every town has something slightly different,
Yeah.
and unique. And I think, if you're not from the leeward coast or you're from anywhere on Oahu or another island, maybe you're thinking everything is the same. Makaha is exactly like Waianae, and Waianae is like Nanakuli, and I think there's some inner things going on there. And we've seen this through education. We've now seen this through even the congestion of traffic. That very similar. And there's a lot of cross families, and everybody's close, but there are some differences there. And I think that in this season, as you're running to be the voice of the leeward coast in this way, to find someone, and maybe I'll close with this. Do you have anything else that is on your heart or your thoughts, your mind?
Yeah, I do. One of the things that I want to say as the elected official for that community is, we have a lot of socioeconomic challenges that we're overcoming through a plethora of different avenues. And, it's really trying to reverse the historic neglect for our community through historic investments into the West Side. And my heart is for really delivering on the promises that have been made decades ago that many of people still have pilikia about inside, because there's so much things that has been promised to our community, that really delivering on those things is what my goal is for our community. And then, of course, really making sure that we get the resources that we deserve, and having someone that knows our community to the point where they don't have to read a book, they don't have to read a newspaper to realize who we are, and to use that as a guiding principle for what we do moving forward. And that's something that I really want to stress to our community is like, my slogan is, I'm from the West for the West. And what I hope that does is really show people like, we are our biggest allies, right? We are the people that can make these changes the best because we know our people, and that we as a community and as a village, to make that change, we got to all hold hands and come together in Lokahi. And I feel like that's one of the last things I would like to leave off on. And I'm here, right? Like, my community, I want everybody to know I'm accessible. I'm at the games, I'm in the community, at the courts, and if more people who have passion for change reach out to us, we work together. I'm all about empowering our residents, because that way it's not a top-down approach. It's a down-up approach to how we create a better, thriving community. And I think that would be the last thing I would leave off on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for braving the drive. Thank you for spending time. And thank you for being here. If you made it this far, then clearly you care about this community. Again, I want to encourage you to share this, like this, put down your comments, and please, again, take a second to vote. Again, we're not a political podcast. We're a podcast that talk about issues with people who can make decisions to help. And we try to simplify it. We did talk about a lot of things. And I do want to just encourage you to continue to fight, continue to elect people that are going to be your voice, because we do have power if you do exercise that. Until the next podcast, I'm Josh here with Sit Down Hawaii. You have an amazing day. Take care. Aloha.